How old is this text?
In human history, it has been existing for the last 2 million years.
There are so many narratives and conversations around sex for fun, sex for pleasure, masturbation, how to reach an orgasm, how to better pleasure your body. What is the take of Bhagavad Gita on sexuality?
Number one, no sex outside the marriage. Within marriage also, only for procreation.
So not for pleasure.
Never for pleasure, never for fun.
Even inside of marriage.
Inside of marriage. The energy in human life must be utilized for higher purpose. Some poets, some philosophers, when they begin to write books or when they want to contemplate, they practice complete celibacy in order to have focus in life. Forget spiritual life. In order to achieve success in material life also, you need to have focus. You need to have your vital energy preserved. Now, most of the people in Kali Yuga will disagree with what we are saying.
And we might get a lot of flack for this conversation.
That's okay. But right is right. At least few individuals might just be saved.
What is the power of semen retention?
When you preserve your semen, it moves upwards and your memory power increases. You will see a person who has preserved his semen, even if they speak 2 words, they'll be so powerful, they will change people's lives. A person who doesn't follow this principle of misusing their energies, you will see there's no attention, there's no focus, they become irritable. Where does the soul go then after giving up the body? The last thought of the soul decides where the soul is going. I'll explain. The perfection of human life is judged at the last moment. It is said life is a preparation, death is the examination.
So once you go there, you've broken the cycle of life and death?
That in Varanasi, when people are burnt on the Manikarnika Ghat, Lord Shiva personally chants the name of Ram into the ears of the dying person, and that's how he liberates them.
What if I have lived a compulsive life throughout? If I die at the Manikarnika Ghat in Banaras, I'll be liberated.
Nityanand Charan, a renowned author, spiritual counselor, has been a practicing monk for the last 18 years at the ISKCON, Mumbai. He has travelled extensively world over, offering insights on Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Ramayana and Mahabharata.
You earn money. Now it will have karma, how you have acquired that. So it will have some karma attached to it. Therefore sometimes you will find the saints won't even touch money. Carries that karmic energy.
What if I'm working in an IT company? I'm working for some of these major tech companies. How do I make my tech job a liberating process and not a binding process? What would your answer be?
A mechanical engineer by education, Prabhuji's discourses today are heard in over 50 countries across the globe.
In Kali Yuga, people will be killed by their own mind. 85% people said that they were suffering from some mental health issue.
Can you please reiterate the mantra for Kali Yuga?
So, Lord Brahma says that in Kali Yuga, people will be liberated, people will be delivered from their miseries only by the Lord has invested all His powers, all His blessings in His name. So when you chant His name, you gain access to those powers. And the name of the Lord acts like fire. It will burn all your lower tastes. It will purify you. It will raise your consciousness.
Is everything predestined, and does numerology or palmistry or astrology work? Why can't I have weed and marijuana? Why can't I smoke up? Because Lord Shiva did it. Krishna had 16,108 wives. But if I have multiple partners, the society looks down upon me. Why this hypocrisy?
We are mighty privileged to have with us in today's spiritual episode of the Body to Being podcast, Prabhuji Nityanand Charan.
I came out of the room and it was suddenly as if something just left my body. It was some different experience. And suddenly coming back to my senses, what did I just do?
The depth of the Gita is limitless and it is a lifelong study. But along with the study, it requires deep introspection, reflection, and application onto one's daily life. It is said that the Gita can answer any question that anyone could conceivably come up with. And this podcast is one such endeavor. If you haven't already, I'd be very grateful if you can subscribe to the channel and please do watch the video till the end. Pranam. Namaskaram and Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for this conversation. We're very excited because this is the first in the series of the scriptures, and there's no better way to start than the Gita itself. Just a few days ago, I was reading a story where I heard that Vikram Sarabhai, the father of Indian space program, was reading Bhagavad Gita in his room at the Bhabha Atomic Center. Narendra Ji, our Prime Minister, has said that I have the biggest gift to offer to the world.
when he was talking about the Gita, and for the world to take from me. So I think it suffices to say that the Bhagavad Gita is perhaps the most important and the most sacred treatise on dharma that there is today. Am I right?
Right.
How old is this text?
So the Gita has been existing in the human history for the last 2 million years. 2,005,000 years to be precise. Mentioned by Krishna himself, the speaker of the Gita, in the 4th chapter of the Gita, 1st verse. Imam vivasvate yogam proktavanaham abhyayam. He says that I gave this supreme science of yoga. Gita is known as a yoga shastra. I gave this supreme science of yoga first of all to sun god Vivaswan, who gave it to his son Manu, the father of mankind, who in turn gave it to his son Ikshwaku, who was the earthly king at the beginning of Treta Yuga. So if you take the age of Treta Yuga, it is 12 lakh years. Then Dwapar is 8 lakh and Kali Yuga 5,000 years. So 2,005,000 years, Gita has been existing in the human history. And why did Krishna speak it again to Arjuna? Because it got lost.
How?
The knowledge gets lost due to various reasons. One is when it is not passed down to the next generation, when that disciplic succession gets broken, and especially when things get diluted. People keep adding their own thing. And then in the end, suppose there are 10 people sitting in this room and I give a glass full of milk, pure white milk, to the first person. He drinks a little and then he adds a little water. And by the time it reaches the 10th person, we would have a glass of crystal clear water, adulterated. So when people drink that adulterated milk, it will have the opposite effect. And then people will stop drinking it. So when things get adulterated, just like the Gita's teachings got lost because they were adulterated, so many different kinds of philosophies came into picture. So people stopped getting the benefit out of it. And therefore they will stop applying that knowledge in their life. They will forget it. And therefore Krishna says in the 4th chapter itself, one of the reasons why he appears in this world is to re-establish dharma. The principles of religion comes again and again, millennium after millennium. It's not just 5,000 years old. It's not even 2,005,000 years old. That's the history. I mean, that's how long the Gita has been existing in human history when we talk about this cycle of the 4 yugas. But it's a science which is given at the beginning of creation itself.
Prabhuji, what is the literal meaning of Srimad Bhagavad Gita?
The literal meaning is, Gita means song.
Okay.
And Bhagavad refers to Bhagavan, the song sung by Bhagavan himself. Therefore, it is the most sacred song. Mahabharata explains, Ahar Nidra Bhaya Maithunam cha Samanyam Etad Pashubhir Naranam. The 4 activities of eating, sleeping, mating and defending are common between animals and humans. So how are we better than them if our life is also centered around these 4 activities only? Get up, eat, sleep, enjoy, repeat next day.
Correct.
And whenever there is some danger, we try to protect ourselves. We try to make our life safe. We try to secure our future by some material assets. How are we different? So Mahabharata explains, Dharmo hi tesham adhiko vishesho. So this special ability to inquire, who am I? Where do I come from? Where will I go? What is the purpose of life? Who is God? What is my relationship with God? How can I revive that relationship? Why do I suffer even if I do not want to? How can I put an end to suffering? And so when a person starts seeking answers to such questions, which other species cannot, that's when the human life truly begins. If a human being does not have a strong spiritual culture, strong spiritual foundation, he is no better than an animal. The last line of this verse says, Dharme nahina pashu bhi saman. Bina dharm ke manushya is a pashu. Why? It's not an abusive language. It is just stating the facts.
Sure.
Because a person is judged by his guna and karma, not by his birth.
Correct.
Like Prahlad is born in the family of a demon, Hiranyakashipu, but he's worshipped as a great devotee. Vibhishan is worshipped, Ravana is not. Although both born in the same family. So a person is recognized by his activities and qualities, not by his birth.
You know, I've been consuming a lot of podcasts and social media content because since the time I started doing this, there are so many narratives and conversations around sex for fun, sex for pleasure, masturbation, you know, how to reach an orgasm, how to better pleasure your body, things like that. So I'd like to know what your take and what is the take of Bhagavad Gita on sexuality, and not just sexuality out of marriage, even inside of marriage. Counselors and studies are showing that sexless marriages is something that you should be careful of because it is leading to separateness and divorce. So I'd also like you to tackle this aspect.
So I'll start with the basics. There are 4 pillars of dharma: austerity, compassion, cleanliness, and truthfulness. So it is clearly mentioned in the Bhagavad that out of the 4, 3 pillars are gone: compassion, cleanliness, and austerity. 1 leg is remaining, 1 leg of dharma, truthfulness, which is also wobbling. So you can expect this to happen more and more.
Okay.
Because purity, cleanliness is destroyed by illicit sex life. Gita talks about this, but only in 1 verse. Krishna says that I am that sex life which is not against the principles of religion, which is not against the principles of dharma. So if the sex life is not against the principles of dharma, then it is directly Krishna says. Krishna says, it's me. That means, number 1, no sex outside the marriage. Within marriage also, only for procreation.
Okay, so not for pleasure.
Never for pleasure, never for fun, because...
Even inside of marriage.
Inside of marriage. The reason is, now most of the people in Kali Yuga will disagree with what we are saying.
And we might get a lot of flack for this conversation.
That's okay. But right is right, even if no one does it. And wrong is wrong, even if everyone does it.
Correct.
We are here to speak the truth. Why should we flatter anybody? At least a few individuals might just be saved, right? Because human life is meant for, the energy in human life must be utilized for higher purpose. Now you just imagine, I've heard some poets, some philosophers, when they begin to write books or when they want to contemplate, they practice complete celibacy. At least for that amount of time. Because they also know in order to have focus in life, forget spiritual life, in order to achieve success in material life also, you need to have focus, you need to have your vital energy preserved. Otherwise you can't think clearly. When you preserve your semen, it moves upwards and then then your memory power increases.
Yes, I want to talk to you about this. What is the power of semen retention?
See, when you retain it, when you preserve it, it starts moving upwards. So then it just reaches the brain. Technical aspect, I cannot get into the details, but thing is, whatever I have heard from our teachers, the saintly people, that's why it's such a powerful thing. And you will see that people who have preserved, who let this semen move upwards, very intelligent. That's why I mentioned some great philosophers, writers. Why do they practice celibacy for the particular amount of time period? Because they know that now to focus completely, this is important. And because people are not preserving this energy, so they're totally distracted. The senses are going crazy, they're everywhere. There's no focus in life. Only those people who've had this focus, given their energy. And more than that, there is something called character, purity. Purity is the force. If we want to create an impact in this world, if our words have to have some impact on the individuals we are speaking to, you will see a person who has preserved his semen, practicing a life of celibacy. Even if they speak 2 words, they'll be so powerful, they will change people's lives. So this is just, I think, a false propaganda, whoever is doing it. They're distracting the youth, they're distracting people. And I really don't know. I mean, people should be utilizing social media to inspire them towards sattvic life, pure life, because that will give them happiness. Sinful life will always bring misery. Physically, mentally, in every field, in every way. You're losing focus, you're losing your energy, your creative power, your intelligence, you're losing your purity. How will you ever make any difference in others' life? Human life means a life of service. How will you serve others if you're only
Preoccupied with the body.
preoccupied with your own enjoyment?
Correct.
So this is not going to help either the person or the society in general.
And unfortunately, people call this liberation in today's day and age.
See, as I said, Kali Yuga is a time where anything can be proved right with majority.
Yes.
But that's not the right way to measure something.
Yes.
Eventually, an individual is judged for his actions, not on the basis of what the social media trend is, what the majority is saying, what makes us feel good or right. It's on the basis of Shastra. The judgment will be based on the law books. So spiritual life means you pay now but enjoy later. And material life means you enjoy now but pay later. One mistake and this, there are so many people suffering from this. They want to give up these habits.
Yes.
But finding it very difficult.
Addiction.
Now. Yeah. That means they all know it is not right.
Yes.
A person who does this, he will lose his, you see, people who are able to preserve, who are able to live a life of celibacy. Celibacy also means within the married life also, if it is done under the rules and regulations, that is also celibacy. But irregulated life, that is not celibacy. People who have been able to preserve their vital energy, and you will see their face looks different. They have some kind of very powerful aura around them. As I said, purity is the force. It is not the words. If a person is pure, automatically people will come running, will be attracted. But a person who doesn't follow this principle of complete celibacy or misusing their energies, you will see there's no attention, there's no focus. They become irritable. At the same time, their face, you will see it looks pale. There's no tej, yeah. So, but one who preserves a semen, you will see the face becomes effulgent. The energy, you can see. Their words have power.
Prabhuji, I want to talk about another very interesting topic, which is on death. And Krishna has said that, I am eternal. Bhagavad Gita elaborately talks about the transient nature of this body. What is death as per the Bhagavad Gita, and what happens after death?
One of the first things that Krishna discusses, he says, Dehino asmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantar praptir dhiras tatrana muhyati. That this body is constantly changing and death is the final change. And after the body is given up, the soul moves into another body.
It is indestructible.
Yes. The soul is indestructible, and he's spoken almost 20 verses just to explain this one concept. Body is perishable, we are not. We are the soul. And then in the 8th chapter, I think 7th or 8th verse, he says, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajante kalevaram tam tam evaiti konteya sada tad bhava bhavita. Where does the soul go then after giving up the body? The last thought of the soul decides where the soul is going.
At the moment of death.
The last thoughts will decide what kind of body, what kind of destination the soul is going to get. And therefore, that brings us to a very important point. The perfection of human life is judged at the last moment. I'll explain. It is said life is a preparation, death is the examination. Now, how well you have studied your subject will be tested at the time of final exam. For us, death is a final exam. Now, anybody can make a show of being a very studious guy, sitting with the books always, but everything will be tested at the time of the result, the final exam, how much you're able to write. So similarly, life, whether we have lived our life successfully, whether our human life has been a success or a failure, will be judged at the time of death. Now, out of 8.4 million species of life, human life has a USP. It is the only life form where we can put an end to the cycle of birth and death, regain our original spiritual nature, our original home. We can go back to the spiritual world. Liberation.
So only a human form can get liberated.
Only human form. Because they are the only ones blessed with the ability to choose and make choices. And
all the other species are caught in that cycle.
They can just live their karma. They cannot rectify their karma. They cannot perform new karma. They're like programmed robots. Now, if a soul gets into any species of life, it'll have to evolve through 8.4 million before it again becomes a human being.
So it has to go through 8.4 species to take a human form.
Yeah. Okay. That is why it is said, Manushya Janma is durlabh, rare. And to waste it, in pursuits which can be, accomplished, which can be done in other species also, is a complete waste of time and energy. Because we have passed through many stages before we became a human being, and now we are doing the same thing. It's called punah punah charvit charvananam. Chewing that has already been chewed before. Imagine you take a bubble gum, you chew this bubble gum nicely and throw it, spit it out, again pick it up, again start chewing.
So how do I prepare for that last moment of death which can then decide my fate?
Like,
further?
how do you prepare for the final exam? You have to study throughout the semester. So the last thought will depend on what you've done throughout your life. Like, I'll share a funny story. There was one businessman, and this man was so deeply attached to his business that even at the age of 50, 60, when the Vedas prescribe at the age of 50, you should start cultivating gradual detachment.
Yes.
Hand over the affairs to your children, and now you start focusing on cultivating God consciousness. Prepare for the final journey. Build your consciousness like that so that your last thoughts can be divine. So he was not willing to do so. The children were frustrated. Reason one, he was not letting them run the business. They also wanted to do something. Number two, they were his well-wishers. They were thinking if he stays too attached to his business, then what will be his next life? Where will he go? You want him to be liberated. That's like a true well-wisher. You want to give eternal happiness to somebody, not just temporary happiness. And therefore the scriptures explain that the greatest welfare is when we try to do something which will help people's consciousness to be raised to God consciousness, because that would mean they will not suffer in future and they don't come back to the material world. Because if somebody comes to the material world, all the miseries associated with the material world will keep coming. So
suffering,
So intelligence means, how can I put an end to all this forever? That's by having that divine consciousness at the last moment. That will depend on whether I have done that hard work to cultivate that remembrance of the Lord on a daily basis. Children of his, they hired one Panditji, said, take our father on a pilgrimage and make sure he leaves his body in some holy place, because when somebody leaves in a holy place, is definitely guaranteed liberation. That's the potency of the holy place.
Okay.
That's why so many people go to leave their bodies in Vrindavan, spend their last days in Banaras. So it is explained by Shankaracharya himself in a prayer, he's Shiva directly, that in Varanasi, when people are burnt on the Manikarnika Ghat, Lord Shiva personally chants the name of Ram into the ears of the dying person. And that's how he liberates them. Shankaracharya ji has written a prayer, Bhujangashtakam, I think, there he mentions this. And he himself is Shankar. So he knows better. So that's why Varanasi, when people go, they are elevated.
What if I have lived a compulsive life throughout?
Yeah.
If I die at the Manikarnika Ghat in Banaras, I'll be liberated.
That's the power of the holy place. But it's not that simple, unless you receive some special grace. If somebody has lived a compulsive life, it will be very difficult for him to have that consciousness, now let me go and leave my body in the holy place.
Okay. Correct.
Arrangements will not happen only. It's not a mechanical process. Only the deserving ones. And the deserving means I may have lived a compulsive life, but if I receive the mercy of a devotee of the Lord, then my good fortune will be created. Then I might get that special privilege. Otherwise, if I've lived a sinful life, I will not even develop a desire to go there. Because that's the realm in which you enter only on invitation. Itna easy as still people are not only the chosen ones. So this man was taken on a pilgrimage. They said make sure he leaves his body in some holy place. But this man was a hard nut to crack. Wherever he went, he was like, Dhanda, idhar ye business karte hain, we'll do this business. This business would be the best in this place. And this Panditji got so frustrated, he wrote a letter back to the sons. He said, your father is an impossible person. I brought him to these holy places so that he could have a change of heart. But I'm scared now that if I stay with him for 2 more days, I'll become like him. So you take him back. I can't take that risk. So they said, no, please try one more time. We'll give you extra money. We'll give you some extra dakshina. He agreed. So he brought him to Manikarnika Ghat finally. And when he saw so many dead bodies burning, funeral pyres, he broke down. He sat down. He started crying and crying, profuse tears. Like, I wasted my life. I'm the most useless guy in this world. I have just spoiled my life. I've ruined my life. And he's crying. And the Panditji is finally happy. Some detachment has prevailed, has dawned upon him. So he was very happy, but then he happened to ask him, what is making you so sad? It's okay, everything will be fine. All of us make mistakes. Then this person somehow managed to wipe away his tears and he looks at the Panditji, says, पूरी जिंदगी मैंने कपड़े का धंधा किया, मुझे पता होता लकड़ी कितनी डिमांड है, तुम लकड़ी का धंधा.
Oh.
So the point is, if you have not worked hard on cultivating those thoughts of the Lord regularly, last moment, it won't happen just like that. Therefore, you have to start preparing from now only. And that means every day dedicating some time of the day to the remembrance of the Lord by chanting His names, by hearing His pastimes. Because how will you remember Him if you don't even know about Him? If you don't even know Him? So you understand His message, you study the Gita, you study mainly the Bhagavad, which has pastimes of Krishna, His avatars, His creation. It's very enlightening, very entertaining. So when you read about His activities, then it becomes easy for us to remember Him. So when we have cultivated that Shravanam, Kirtanam in our daily routine, then it becomes easy to have those thoughts. Plus the grace also comes. The Lord also sees that you have tried your best throughout your life, so I must now enter your mind and remind you of myself. And that's how a devotee's position is most secure. That even at the last moment he's not able to remember, the Lord will remember him.
Coming to Gunas, Prabhuji, we had a conversation previously and you told me that the theme of Gunas runs across the Gita. Could you please elaborate on this? What are these Gunas?
Suppose I ask you, what is your favorite food? What would you say?
Biryani.
Biryani. What is your favorite color?
Blue.
What kind of music do you like? Classical, rock music or whatever?
Semi-classical.
Now, where do you think these choices are coming from?
Conditioning.
That's called nature. That's called gunas. Now I'll go back. What are the gunas? 3 gunas: sattva guna, rajogun and tamogun. Mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So guna means rope. Remember this word. Guna means rope. And when you want to make a rope, there are 3 strands involved, right? And that's how this knot becomes strong. Like kabhi your mother would make your
choti.
So 3 are required, right?
Braid.
So 3 gunas. That's how it keeps getting stronger. So now what is this guna? As I mentioned earlier, we are spiritual beings. So we belong to the spiritual realm, not to the material realm. Since we have fallen into this material realm now, material universe, material creation, now to survive here, a material body is given to us, which is what we are, which we are seeing. Now, when the soul falls from the spiritual world to the material realm, for example, if you go from India to UK, now whatever you do there, even if you're buying something, you're moving around, everything that you come across falls under one of the departments of the government. At least one department of the government controls that particular aspect of the city. Similarly, in the material world, there are 3 controllers, which are controlled by Durga Devi herself. She is the Mahamaya Shakti of the Lord. So these departments are Sattvagun, Rajogun, Tamagun. So everything in this creation, this material creation, falls under one of these 3 departments. Either things are in mode of goodness, or mode of passion, or mode of ignorance. For example, food. Now, food is also in 3 categories. Sattvagun food, fruit, nuts, milk, vegetables is Sattvagun. Rajogun food, food in the mode of passion, is food which is very hot, spicy, pungent. And then there is food putrid, which is being cooked for more than 3 hours. Or non-vegetarian food. Which
frozen
is like,
foods.
Yeah, so which is basically dead bodies, non-vegetarian food we are eating, or frozen foods. It's all in the mode of ignorance, tamogun. Now when the soul falls into this world, depending on what choices the soul makes, okay, I want to eat this kind of food, or I want to listen to this kind of music. So every time you are making a choice, you are actually coming in contact with one of the 3 gunas. So these 3 gunas, in simple words, you can say our nature, our personality, or our conditioning.
So if I'm a Rajas, or if I have Tamas gun and I want to become a Sattva gun, Bhakti is the way.
You have to start making choices like that.
Okay.
See, one is...
Practicing Bhakti Yoga can help?
Yes. That's the only thing that can help you rise above, because two things.
Yes.
One is your effort will be required. Not that you sit and Krishna, you do it. You do your effort. You also make that choice. I will try, plus His grace.
How do we practice Bhakti?
Bhakti has 9 limbs. And the first and foremost is Shravanam, hearing. Hearing from the Guru. Hearing from the scriptures, from the bona fide Guru. And then the second is Kirtanam, chanting His names, or chanting His glories. It is the simplest, yet the most powerful. And in the Gita, Krishna has again and again said, only through Bhakti can I be known as I am, can I be approached, can I be understood. So Bhakti begins by hearing, chanting. And there are various other limbs of the Bhakti. One is deity worship, worshipping the deity form of the Lord, offering wonderful prayers, surrendering everything that you have in His service, acting as His well-wishers. So there are different ways, but 2 processes, 2 limbs are primary and most powerful. Shravanam and Kirtanam. If you regularly hear about Him from scriptures like the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, you read Ramayana, you read, these are enough. And then you chant His names. Like we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, which is specifically mentioned in the Kali Santarana Upanishad, the mantra for this Yuga.
Yes.
Because Kali Yuga keval naam adhara. Kali Yuga mein the only spiritual practice which is recommended to attain the perfection of human life is the chanting of the Lord's name.
Okay.
There is a verse which says, Krite yad dhyayato vishnum, tretayam yajato mukhe, dwapare paricharyayam, kalau tad hari kirtanat. In Satyuga, the process was meditation on the form of the Lord for a long, long time. Dhyayato vishnum. And then Treta Yuga, the process became yajna. In every yuga, the spiritual practice changes depending on the time, place and circumstances. In Dwapara Yuga, the process became temple worship, deity worship with punctuality, cleanliness. And Kalau Tad Hari Kirtanat. In Kali Yuga, it is simply the singing and chanting of the names of Lord Hari. And there are so many verses, like there is a verse in the Brihad Naradiya Purana. It says, Harer Naam, Harer Naam, Harer Namayava Kevalam, Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyatha. So when scriptures mention something 3 times, that means that's it, full stop.
Oh.
No more argument. It says, Harer Naam, Harer Naam, Harer Naam. Only the name of Hari, only the name of Hari, only the name of Lord Hari. This is the first 3 words. Harer Naam, Harer Naam, Harer Naam. Eva means certainly. Kevalam means only. Kalau in Kali Yuga. Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva. There is no other way. There is no other way. There is no other way. Gatir Anyatha, to attain the perfection of human life.
Prabhuji, can you please reiterate the mantra for Kali Yuga?
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That anybody who will chant this Mahamantra will be able to become immune to the miseries caused by this darkest age of Kali.
How many times do we chant this?
See, in ISKCON, we are recommended to chant 16 malas if you have taken Diksha. That's the vow we take in front of our Guru. But it's good to begin, maybe you can start with 2 malas, 3 malas. 1 mala will take I think 8 minutes max. Okay. 108 in 1 mala. So it's up to the individual. Like I began with 1 round when I was in college. Then I gradually increased to 3, 5, 7, 8 and then gradually came to 16. It took me 6 months to come to 16. And that's what we do, but it's like every long journey begins with a
single step.
So you begin, but I would highly recommend that we begin chanting. It's not just because I am chanting, I am recommending. No, it is the scriptures recommending. Scriptures are the guidebook. Because scriptures say so, so we are doing it and we are recommending.
And with this, I can transcend my gunas, my tendencies.
200%.
Wonderful.
200%. I have experienced a change in myself.
Okay.
I have seen others changing. This is like I mentioned, the 2 foremost processes of Bhakti, limbs of Bhakti are Shravanam, Kirtanam. And between the 2, it is the Kirtanam. Chanting of His names. The supreme most spiritual practice. And there are no hard and fast rules to practice this. You can chant while walking, you can chant while sitting, before taking bath, after taking bath. There are no rules for chanting the Lord's name.
Okay.
The only thing is, when you chant, try to hear the sound of the mantra. Hare Krishna, like that. The mind will wander away, doesn't matter. Bring it back, focus on the sound again. And then you see, gradually, within like 2-3 days, you will start experiencing those benefits, the nourishment that you've been hankering for. One is the more attentively you are chanting, the sooner you will receive the benefits. It is mentioned in the scriptures that Namna Makari Bahuda Nij Sarva Shaktis. The Lord has invested all His powers, all His blessings in His name.
Okay.
So when you chant His name, you gain access to those powers. And the name of the Lord acts like fire. For example, this is fire. You put your hand in fire knowingly. Will it burn you? You put your hand unknowingly. You will still be burned. You put your hand while you are sleeping. You will be burned. You put your hand without knowing the power of fire. You will still be burned. Similarly, the name of the Lord acts like fire. Even if you are chanting inattentively, it will still act like fire. It will burn all your lower tastes. It will purify you. It will raise your consciousness. And most importantly, the heart gets purified.
Okay.
Of the 6 enemies, 6 voices: lust, envy, anger, greed, pride, illusion.
So chanting consciously is great, but even if you chant unconsciously,
it will still act.
Okay.
It will still act. It's like fire. And that's why it has been given as the main spiritual practice, because in Kali Yuga, people are distracted. So when they are not very, very well prepared to hear or understand the philosophy, intellectually people are challenged. So many distractions. So when people are distracted, they don't have the intellectual capacity, they're lazy when it comes to spiritual life, then the most powerful solution has to be given. Like when a person is not able to eat, so they do that IV.
Correct.
Even if you're not eating, chewing, it is still giving you strength. So it is like that. One name of the Lord is so powerful, it is explained in the Padma Purana, that it can counteract the number of sins that a person might never ever be able to commit. It destroys your bad karmas also. But that's just the byproduct. The real product is, it gives you the perfection of life, the human life.
Okay.
Self-realization, God realization, very easily.
So as you mentioned, Prabhuji, we are living in a world where, excessive importance has been given to what I can do versus how I am.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about karma and karma yoga. Because many people feel, अरे मैं तो ऑफिस जाता हूँ, मैं तो घर पाल रहा हूँ, मैं तो कर्म योगी हूँ. So if you can please shed some light on karma and karma yoga.
So my advice to such people is, even if you find the topics about the Lord or connection with Him tasteless, boring, not very interesting, the solution is not to give up. Solution is continue doing it, even if you don't feel like doing it. Do it still, it is the right thing to do. And gradually the taste will come. Now these people who say, I have also come across people, oh, I don't come to temple, I am a karma yogi, I believe in karma. No, there is a difference between karma and karma yoga.
Please explain.
Karma means actions that we engage in. It specifically refers to activities which are done to get something in return, with some goal in mind, with some purpose in mind. And karma will have a reaction. Every action will have an equal and opposite reaction. Karma yoga means to connect, to link with the Supreme Lord. That's why Gita is called Yoga Shastra. It teaches us the art of connecting with the Lord through karma, dhyana, jnana, and ultimately bhakti. So disconnected life is condemned. It's animal life. So karma becomes karma yoga only when your karma is helping you connect with God, when it is taking you deeper into that relationship. For example, now you have money, you earn money. Now it will have karma, how you have acquired that. It will have some karma attached to it because the money comes through various hands. So everything, therefore sometimes you will find the saints won't even touch money.
Yes.
It carries that karmic energy.
Okay.
Now if you use that, a portion of it to serve the Lord, you may have a temple at home, or you may assist the mission of the Lord where it is being genuinely utilized. Then your karma becomes karma yoga, because you're using the fruit of your karma to serve the Lord also. You like to eat, nobody is forbidden from eating the nicest of things. But you first offer it to the Lord, then it becomes karma-free diet. It becomes karma yoga. You like to live in a nice palatial house. Okay, have a little temple for the Lord also, where as a family you come together to pray to Him, to worship Him, to serve Him. So you can facilitate these things if you can't do at home. So this way your whole life becomes yogic. And Krishna says, in all circumstances, try to be a yogi. That means in all circumstances, try to stay connected. So these are the people who don't want to take responsibility of their life. They want to avoid spiritual life. But they make this excuse so that it makes them feel thoda sa nice that we are karma yogis. But I say they are ignorant. They don't have full knowledge.
Prabhuji, karma can be liberating and it can be binding, right? We are living in, again, a world where too much importance is given to doing what you like, doing what you love, do what you're passionate about. You know, there are these words like passionpreneurs that are flying around. But if I like what I do, or if I love what I do, then that is also binding in karma, correct?
Yeah, but wrong is wrong. Right is also wrong, because we are taking decisions based on the influence of the conditionings that we carry. So we are at the moment the bound captive prisoners of the three gunas right now, which is what is deciding our choices, likes and dislikes and feelings. And these three gunas are material, they are contaminating, they are impure. So therefore we need to be constantly guided by higher intelligence, which is the intelligence coming from the Guru and Krishna,
Okay.
based on the Shastra.
If we can take an example, we are constantly performing karma. This conversation, for example, is karma inducing. The very fact that we started a podcast is karma. How can I make this karma into a liberating process and not a binding process? For example, there are many people, especially among the youngsters, you know, we want to be writers, we want to be designers because we love doing that. Now, if I love being a writer and if I'm writing books, is that karma binding? And how can it not be karma binding?
See, there is a concept of karma, vikarma and akarma, as I mentioned also in the Gita. Akarma is liberating. Karma and vikarma both are binding. Now what is karma? Good deeds. Philanthropic work, helping somebody's material welfare. That's karma. But it is still binding. It may give you some resultant good birth, but you're still in the world. Still the miseries will continue. And then the vikarma is, of course, sinful karmas, bad deeds. Akarma means when God gets added to any activity. That is akarma. Activities in relation to the Lord. For example, if somebody is writing, now you are writing for Him, to glorify Him. Or you are writing in a way that reading your book, people's God consciousness will be raised.
Okay.
They'll become more God conscious. They will come close to God. Their faith in the Lord will increase. Then it becomes akarma. Then that is liberating. You will be benefited. They will be benefited. Somebody likes to distribute food to the poor, to the needy. That's a good activity. Uska reward hoga aage chalke. You'll get rewards. But if you want it to become liberating, then offer that food to the Lord first. Then you distribute. Then it is not just solving their problem of hunger of the body, but the hunger of the soul will also be satisfied. Because sanctified food which has been offered to the Lord, it carries spiritual potency then. It will purify their consciousness, it will make them God conscious. Prasad goes inside the system and they will develop that God consciousness. Or you're writing books, you may say...
Or doing podcasts.
Or doing podcast. And maybe you're utilizing whatever earnings you have, a portion of it, to facilitate such things where people can come close to God, or it increases their remembrance of Him, like that. Then everything that you have becomes liberating, because now He is the goal, He is the enjoyer of the fruits of my actions. Or if I'm writing a book, it may not be related to God, but I'm using the earnings to cultivate God consciousness myself, my family, or to raise other people's standard of their faith in God. So like that. So any activity where the Lord gets added becomes akarmic. There is action, but it is equivalent to inaction. There is karma, but no reaction. So that's what Krishna recommends. Yagyarthat karmano nyatta loko ayam karma bandhana. He says, 3rd chapter, 9th verse, that perform all activities for my satisfaction, because otherwise the work will cause bondage. So you have to see all you have to have is desire. Like you're doing podcast, you can think, okay, how can I use it to connect with the Lord? How can I use it to serve Him? Service we are anyways doing. Somebody serving his family, somebody serving his nation, his senses, his community. So then there is service to God also. And all you have to do is simply pray or desire that how can I serve Krishna also? And then all the facilities, all the intelligence will be given to you by Him. Is that kind of master. You don't have to do anything. So that is the essence of the Gita. You don't have to give up what you're doing. Your expertise, your talents, your occupation, your family. Now, wherever you are, from there, how you can connect with Him. You have your own spiritual sadhana in place, first of all, Shravanam, Kirtanam, and all the intelligence will come. And how you can utilize your expertise to glorify Him further, to tell others about Him. Because if you really want to attract Krishna's attention instantly and try to connect others with Him, immediately He will see you, He will notice you. In the Bhagavad Gita, towards the end, He tells Arjuna that anybody who shares this message with others, there's nobody more dear to me than that person. There will never ever be one dearer than him. It is the easiest way to attract his attention. When we try to share his message with others, when we try to connect others with him, then we automatically become dear to him. And once he is pleased with our efforts, all our efforts become successful. All the desires will be fulfilled. You will get best of both the worlds. Material opulence, material perfection as well as spiritual perfection is guaranteed by His grace.
So just to summarize this, Prabhuji, for better clarity, I should not be doing podcasts for the enjoyment of it, but to convey the divine's word.
Ideally, if you can do that, I think nothing like it, because the blessings that you will receive, and especially when considering today's times, people are becoming more and more inclined. They are looking forward to such knowledge more and more, especially after COVID. And the more we can do this, the better it will be for our own advancement also in spiritual life and for their sake also. Because see, help can be rendered to individuals at two different levels. The level of the body and the level of the soul. Body means you give food, clothing, shelter, or mentally you try to do something to give them that peace. And soul ke level, we are the soul ultimately. Soul ke level means you have to give them knowledge of God from the scriptures. Authentic knowledge, pure knowledge, because that will create the transformation. So yes, we have to do both.
And this karma will be liberating and not binding.
This is liberating.
Okay.
It has no reaction. It has no reaction. Like this conversation, it is centered around God. It is going to produce no reaction
Okay.
for 2 hours. It has no reaction. So yes, you can continue doing podcast, of course, because as I said, mind, body and soul. People need all. But there are so many people who are doing, who are addressing the first two. Mind
Correct.
and body.
Yes.
But hardly anybody is addressing this soul concept.
Yes.
And we are the soul.
Yes.
So we have been trying to address the needs of somebody who we are not. So there are so many people in the world, comfort set. Mentally, they're listening to so many seminars, but eventually happiness kahan hai? Satisfaction, contentment kahan hai? Transformation of the heart kahan pe hai?
Absolutely.
The greed, envy. If we are not getting purified of lust, envy, greed, pride, illusion, how are we advancing? Real advancement means advancement of consciousness. Especially, Krishna has mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, this Gita knowledge is meant for those who have influence in society. It's meant for the leaders, influencers, because people look up to them. Whatever example they set, others will follow. So this is the greatest service as influencers we can do, to guide them on the path of God consciousness, to guide them on the path of purity, to lead a life of purity, sattvic life. Because that would make sure they will not suffer in future. But if you are guiding them on the path of continue doing whatever you are doing, you have illicit connections, you drink, you do, so it may give them happiness now. But then what about the imminent misery that is coming their way? When people become pure in their habits and their character, they will always experience happiness. So all our efforts should be centered around this principle. In the Bhagavatam, just to sum it up, this principle, Shukadeva Goswami, who is narrating the Bhagavad to King Parikshit, Abhimanyu's son, he says, how do you judge the perfection of any occupation?
Yes.
He says, Sam Siddhir Hari Toshanam. If Lord Hari is pleased with what we are doing, then we know that the work we are doing is a success. And if he's not pleased, it's a failure. So we have to do something which is real, eternal, not something which is temporary or superficial.
Prabhuji, let's take another example. What if I'm working in an IT company? I'm working for some of these major tech companies. So the question that can come up is, how do I get the God's name? How do I get Bhakti into what I'm doing? How do I make my tech job a liberating process and not a binding process? What would your answer be?
You see, when Arjuna was shooting arrows in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, after he heard the Gita, he was not meditating on Krishna. He was doing his duty. So the way forward is that, number one, we utilize the earnings that we have to connect with him. We can have a nice temple at home where regularly the family comes together with God as the center for some activities. Even if once a week, collectively we do, family that prays together, stays together. We are dedicating some time in a week collectively on an individual basis. Every day we can take some time out at home to chant, to study, to hear. It's the era of podcasts, so there are so many podcasts available which you can listen to while you're going to your office, coming back from office. I know so many people. They said this is our best time when we are traveling to the office, that going and coming we listen. It's just a matter of desire. And even if you get only 30 minutes, even those 30 minutes will be accepted by the Lord, because He is only looking for the intention and your capacity.
Not the nature of work.
Somebody's capacity could be 5 hours. Somebody's only having 10 minutes. But everyone's best will be accepted. Okay, at max I can give my 10 minutes. Somebody say I can give 3 hours. Both will be accepted by the Lord. So it's just a matter of desire. And we have to prioritize that some time of the day I will exclusively dedicate to chant the Lord's names, to study the Gita, or to listen to some narrations, the message of the Lord, some podcast about the Lord. And that's it. It's the most powerful way to stay connected. Chanting and hearing, whichever attracts your heart the most. And if you have the desire, you will find time. Anything we prioritize in life, we will find time. When you are working, you work. That time you're not like one hand is on your laptop and the other hand you are chanting.
Okay.
So you focus fully. I'll give you a very nice example how we need to live in this world. 500 years ago, Lord Krishna's secret avatar comes as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's predicted in the Upanishads, Puranas, Mahabharata also. And not many people know about him, but he appeared on the banks of Ganga in Mayapur, which is also ISKCON's world headquarters.
Okay.
So long story. So there was one devotee, his name was Raghunath Das Goswami, who later on became a very, very great Vaishnavacharya in Vrindavan. So he was born in a very, very wealthy family, but very detached. Because in his childhood, he had the association of some very detached saints. So he wanted to become like them, because we are what we associate with. So he developed that deep desire to associate with the Lord, to serve Him. So he wanted to run away from home. Every time his father had kept guards, would bring back Raghunath.
Okay.
And they got him married to a girl who was more beautiful than an Apsara, damsel of the heaven. He was least interested. He wanted to run away. He was writing many letters to the Lord, who was in Jagannath Puri at that time. Then after many letters, the Lord wrote back a reply. He says, don't be a Markat Vairagi. Know what is a Vairagi? Vairagi means renunciant, who has left everything. And Markat means monkey. Just we don't have to become a Markat Vairagi. In other words, he was trying to teach that it's not that you have to give up everything to practice spiritual life or cultivate God consciousness.
Okay.
He says a monkey looks very renounced. A monkey seems to be very renounced. How? He lives in the forest, has no home, lives under trees or on the trees, subsists on some fruit and root. But what is the monkey doing? Surrounded by many female monkeys. So that's not a renunciation. Renunciation is not based on your external circumstances. He says you have to live in this world like a married woman who has a paramour, who has another lover. Paramour, Paramour, another lover. You have to live in this world like a married woman who has another lover. The Lord is giving this example to this devotee. You have to live like this. So he explained. He says, a married woman who has another lover will execute her household duties extra carefully, with extra attention, extra effort. She's very nice to everyone, very respectful, so that nobody suspects her. But internally, her heart is always focused on him, remembering her beloved. When will I meet him? Or thinking of him only. So you have to live like this in this world. Externally, whatever duties you have, you perform those duties very nicely, extra attentively, very carefully. But heart should be fixed on him. Do whatever you do, but try to cultivate his remembrance. Keep him in your heart, keep him in your mind. But in order to do that, you will have to dedicate some time of the day to force yourself to remember him by chanting his name, by studying the Gita or the Bhagavad or listening about his activities. That way, that remembrance will gradually happen, that even while you are working, you will be able to remember him. And that is the goal. Remembrance is the key. How to come to that stage that we can remember him always. So if you are able to remember him always, then we don't even need to do any external rituals. Because we have already reached the peak or the goal of our spiritual practices. Remembrance is the key. Like in yoga also, you practice yoga. Yoga has 8 stages. And the 8th is samadhi. Samadhi means what? Not even for a moment your mind gets diverted from his thought. So that is the perfection. So therefore, whatever little time you get, you try to study the scriptures. Associate with devotees. Associate with saintly people as and when you get time. Hear from them. And that way, we will get transformed and that remembrance will become easy.
Okay. So can I serve humanity as opposed to serving God, or do I have to do both?
Both. As I mentioned, 2 types of duties Krishna mentions. One is Sadharma, one is Sanatan Dharma. Sadharma means duty towards friends, family, society, which is karma, and then there is duty towards God. Because one is dharma of the body. So you are serving in relation to this body, whoever you come in touch with. And then there is dharma of the soul. We are the soul. So uska bhi ek dharma hai, which is a part and parcel of the Lord. It's a duty. And liberation is only possible when Lord Mukunda comes into picture. Mukunda means Krishna, one who gives mukti.
Okay.
So if your goal is that, then you have to do this. But if somebody wants to keep suffering, keep coming back here, we never know. Once a human being doesn't mean always a human being. We might get degraded to another species. And then we keep suffering. That's not intelligence. So you do both.
Is this what will lead me to that Nitya Anand or that ultimate bliss?
True.
Seva and sadhana, both hand in hand.
Both.
Okay.
See, any which way, when somebody truly loves God, that love and devotion has awakened. But that person will never go around making a show of what he has achieved. Because he naturally becomes very humble. He tries to hide it like a sacred jewel. You don't go around telling everybody, look at this jewel. It will be stolen away. So how do we understand that this person has truly achieved that status and he's truly a lover of God? He has attained that devotional platform. Externally, that love for the Lord is manifest as compassion. And that compassion is not compassion for the body only, compassion for the soul. So a real spiritualist, a real well-wisher of human beings will always make sure that he's not just serving the body of an individual, but the soul as well.
Okay. In this segment, Prabhuji, it's inspired from your book, Ask a Monk. And these are questions that keep coming up in a seeker's mind. So the first question is, what is the purpose of life?
I think we have covered that, but the purpose of human life, to be precise, is self-realization, God-realization. This body has been specially given for that purpose. So therefore, the Vedas also mention dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So you see, most of the people get stuck between Artha and Kama. Artha means earn money, Kama means fulfill your desires, enjoy. But you see, the foundation is Dharma. It's not like Artha, Kama, Dharma and Moksha. Dharma is the foundation. And if Dharma, you have a strong spiritual foundation, then your Artha and Karma will not bind you. Rather, it will lead you to the fourth stage, which is Moksha, liberation. But if Dharma is missing, then you will get stuck in Artha and Kama and then entangled in the karmic reactions and keep going through miseries, keep going through failures, disappointments in life. So the purpose is to ultimately be free from this cycle of birth and death and regain our original nature. And that's why human life was always divided into 4 stages. First to 25th was the student life. 26 to 50, you earn, you enjoy, you have your family. But at the age of 50, it was always prescribed that you start cultivating gradual detachment from family affairs, from business.
At age of 50, you said. Okay.
And then you start moving more towards your spiritual side. And then gradually at the age of 75, complete detachment, so that you can prepare for the final journey.
Is everything predestined, and does numerology or palmistry or astrology work?
Numerology, palmistry, astrology, they are sciences, Vedic science. And they're just like a map. They can tell you, okay, you're choosing this path, you will end up here, you'll end up here. But you can always choose a different path. And that's why you see numerologists or astrologers, they will give you some stone, they will tell you, change this letter in your number or change this or whatever name. So that means they also know, they also convey through their actions that things can change.
Yes.
That's why they say, you wear this stone, do this puja, this will not happen then. So yes, whatever we have received, this family, the kind of body we have, certain level of intelligence, faith, this is called destiny.
Can I change it through bhakti?
Yeah. And now what I do with it is a choice. Whatever we have received is destiny. Now what we do with it is a choice. Bhakti, yes, can change destiny. That's why I mentioned there are 5 factors Gita mentions for the accomplishment of any action. The person, the individual like you and me. Second is the place of action, kahan wo action kiya ja raha hai. Third is the endeavor, effort. Fourth is destiny. And the 5th factor, which is bigger than destiny, is the will of the Lord. Like in Draupadi's case, now you imagine Draupadi is the daughter-in-law of the most powerful family of the time during Mahabharata. Her husbands are the most powerful people on the planet. Still, she was dragged into that assembly. There was an attempt to strip her naked. And her own people are seated there. Dhritarashtra is there. Own family member, Dronacharya is there. Guru, Bhishma is their grandfather. Her own husbands are there. But none of them could save her. All became helpless. That is destiny. And this story is being told by Krishna to the Pandavas while they were in exile, just to let them know why they were suffering, why Draupadi had to go through, because in her past life she had committed some offense.
Okay.
But fortunately, she called out to me and I intervened in her destiny and saved her from the reaction. So, that is destiny. That if we are destined to suffer, even if we are surrounded by all the wealth, influence, all kinds of facilities, power, but if it is in our destiny to suffer, nobody will be able to save us. Everything and everyone will become helpless. But then Krishna taught through this example. But if we reach out to him, we call out to him, he will intervene in a person's destiny and protect her. He has promised. Anybody ever reaches out to me, calls out for me, I go and protect that person. It's a promise. And there are countless such examples in the Bhagavad, Mahabharata also, and Ramayana also. And the primary method is chanting of the names. Like the dacoit, Ratnakar, he was a murderer. And Narad Muni made him chant the Lord's name, that too ulta, Mara, 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 and that became Ram. And he went on to become the great sage who went on to write Ramayana. So how he got purified of his sins? The name of the Lord has that power. Therefore, it is the easiest, safest, surest and quickest way to become free from karma. In the Brahma Samhita, Lord Brahma himself says, Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. That the process of bhakti yoga completely burns all the sinful karmas to ashes. Dahati, dahan kar deta hai. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, ultimate instruction, last instruction, 18.66, Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo moksheshyami ma shuchah. बाकी सब ड्यूटीज छोड़ दो जो मैंने तुमसे बात किया अभी. He says, forget whatever I have spoken to you till now, Arjuna. Just do one duty. Perform one duty. Come to my sharan. Come to my shelter. Take my shelter. I promise to save you from all sinful karmas. Do not fear. Krishna has promised. Simple example. If a person is destined to suffer for 10 years in prison, a criminal, but if he behaves nicely inside the prison, then he may be released in 5 years also.
Yes.
And the president, the authorities can take that call. Similarly, karmas, a person gets affected by the laws of karma as long as he lives a life independent of God. When he begins to follow the laws of God, then the karmic cycle can end very soon.
Okay.
He will release that person from the bondage of karma.
A very famous question around Shiva, actually, which you also dealt in your book is, and I've heard this a lot, why can't I have weed and marijuana? Why can't I smoke up? Because Lord Shiva did it and he's the ultimate God. What is this? Is this a myth?
There is not even a single reference in any of the scriptures where it is mentioned Lord Shiva smokes. Now what people have done is, they have seen his picture where he's sitting like this and there is some smoke that is coming, that is surrounding his hands, the cupped hands. Now that picture is from the Samudra Manthan, when the Devatas and the demons performed Samudra Manthan, which is in the 8th canto of Bhagavatam, this whole pastime, this episode. And the first thing that came out of that churning of the milk ocean was halahal vish, which was spreading all over the universe. It was making life difficult for everyone. Everybody could have just perished. So they went to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu said, let's go to Lord Shiva. This poison is his department. And Lord Shiva, out of compassion, he concentrated that entire poison into his hands and drank it. And he held it in his neck. Therefore, he got the name Nilkant. So that is the poison he is drinking. Now these people, even they don't have any reference that Lord Shiva drinks or smokes. But they want to do it. And they want to do it in the name of Shiva because they need somebody to pay their bill like that. So they want somebody to be faced. So they want to justify their wrongdoing in the name of Shiva, which is, I think, a very, very severe mistake, a sin. There's no mention, because knowledge about Shiva, Krishna, all these personalities ultimately must come from the subject books, which are the scriptures.
Right.
And not even one reference you will find in any of the scriptures that Lord Shiva smokes. But those people who want to do so, and they don't want to, when people, they know it's bad, but they want to do it in the name of Shiva just to get some sort of
Validation.
Validation. They want to validate what they feel and think is right, and they're using Shiva's name. So it's a sin, it's a mistake, and I don't think we should fall into that trap.
Krishna had 16,108 wives, but if I have multiple partners, the society looks down upon me, and Krishna is again the epitome of divinity. Why this, why this hypocrisy?
When it comes to Krishna, every incarnation of the Lord that comes, it comes with a specific mission, teach something. Lord Ram came to establish Maryada. Lord Nrsimhadev came to protect Prahlad. Krishna came to establish his supremacy over other incarnations. And when it comes to 16,108 queens, it was not that Krishna was going around proposing to every girl. 16,100 girls, they were abducted by a demon called Narakasur. These princesses, they were princesses. and they were praying constantly to be saved to Krishna. So he came from Dwarka, he protected them. And that time society was such that once you had lived away from home, you wouldn't be accepted back into society. That was the kind of system conservative society was there, because they would think your purity has been destroyed, now we can't have you. Nobody would marry you. So they prayed to Krishna that nobody would accept us. So Krishna being God, anybody who comes to his shelter, it's his duty to reciprocate. So he accepted them. That's how they married.
Okay.
And he built a palace for each one of them. And he had that capability where he was staying with all of them simultaneously. He would expand himself into so many different forms. And the other 8 also, starting with Rukmini and Satyabhama, they were the ones who reached out to Krishna for marriage. And Krishna has already mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, 11th verse, as you approach me, I will reward you accordingly. So if somebody wants to be in a relationship with Krishna as a wife, Krishna gives that privilege. If somebody wants to be Krishna's friend, as God is duty bound to do that. Otherwise, there would be another accusation. I asked for something from Krishna, Krishna didn't give. No, he is God, he can do everything. Just like Lord Shiva, people want to imitate.
Yes.
Oh, he's smoking, we will smoke. But he's never smoked. He has never smoked in his life. We have no reference. But if you want to imitate Shiva, then imitate him fully, na?
Correct.
Try to drink some poison.
Yeah.
Try to carry some snakes around your neck. Live in crematoriums. Move around with ghosts. Do other things also. But that they wouldn't do. Similarly, Krishna has done so many things. He lifted Govardhan Hill for 7 days, 7 nights. He killed Putana, so many demons. And then he's protecting these girls who are reaching out. They want to be his wife. Why shouldn't he refuse, Baba? It's his duty as God to reciprocate.
Okay.
That's all. There is no difference. He's simply reciprocating with his devotees in different types of relationships which the devotees want.
Okay.
Somebody wants to be his lover. Okay, I'll give you that privilege. Somebody wants to be his friend. Okay, you become my friend. Somebody wants to be his wife. Become my wife. I'll give you that privilege.
Okay.
So it is simply reciprocation.
And inclusivity.
Inclusivity. Everyone is accepted.
Yes.
That's what Krishna is teaching. With whatever bhav you approach me, I will reward you accordingly. So there is hope for everyone.
Yes. I want to talk about diet. We know that the scriptures talk about vegetarian foods. But why no onion and garlic? What is the reason? Halaki bola gaya that onion and garlic is medicinal in nature. So why shouldn't a spiritual seeker or a yogi have onion garlic?
As I mentioned in the beginning, everything in this world falls into 3 categories: Sattvagun, Rajogun and Tamogun. And then you are what you eat. So onion and garlic fall into the category of Tamoguni food, mode of ignorance. And as I've mentioned many times during the podcast, that human life is meant for a higher inquiry, higher intelligence, cultivating higher principles. So, but if you're eating Tamoguni food, your intelligence also gets clouded and you can't think clearly. Laziness, indolence, lack of discrimination, those qualities you will develop associated with the mode of ignorance. And just to avoid that, and since our purpose is higher, so we avoid certain kind of food.
Prabhuji, I think this has been the most enlightening podcast that I've had up until now. I cannot thank you enough for giving me so much of your time. Thank you so much, and I hope to have one more session with you sometime in the future.
Thank you so much. I feel privileged and so happy to meet you. I can see the Sattvagun around you, so which is very good, which is very much required. And hope you can keep sharing that goodness with others as well.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
In case you'd like to be a part of our online and in-person yoga, diet and spiritual programs, you can join our WhatsApp group below, where we post all our upcoming programs and give free tips on health, diet and lifestyle.